Welcome. This is Dr. Paul Dyer. How you doing? Welcome to Bridges Live. And again, I have another great show for you today. Remember, you can catch Bridges Live on Monday. You can download it from iHearts and iTunes Radio. And you can always reach me on drpaulholisticscience.com. Remember, Bridges Live is about getting you from here to there. And it's about information, understanding, and putting yourself into an action. And I'd like to thank all my listeners and all my sponsors. Remember, if you ever want to sponsor, you can always click on the Dr. Paul's YouTube channel, and you can donate and sponsor, because without your sponsors and donations, we all got to move along. But I have another guest, and let's get right to it. Hey, Joel, welcome to Bridges Live with Dr. Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be here. How about yourself?
Excellent. Again, most of you who listen to my shows, I just don't like introducing people because I think it sounds so corny and ridiculous. But give us something you want us to know about yourself, Jewel. Like what you do and we can get right into the show.
Absolutely. So I'm from Oakland, California. I'm a spiritual man, born into a biracial family, Scottish-Canadian mother, African-American father to a Buddhist community. So I grew up very eclectic here in the Bay Area, but then skipping forward, because I really want to get into the meat and potatoes of what I do and what I want to share, is when I went to college, undergrad at Santa Barbara, I co-founded the African Black Coalition, which is currently the largest black student organization in the University of California school system today. But when I moved on from there, I got my license in marriage family therapist and studied under an African-American therapist named Eugene Porter, MFT, who literally wrote the book on male sexual abuse in the 80s. This is at a time when they didn't even recognize this as something that existed. Two more relevant pieces are, I moved on from that, established black executive men. My father was a businessman, and so am I. I love the corporate sector, just how business moves there. So Black Executive Men helps black men in corporate America find inner peace through individual psychotherapy. And the very last piece is, because I wanted to make a bigger impact and work with black men and women, I started a new program. It's called Champions, and I work with African American employee groups providing mental health programs to them. So that's where I'm at. And one little caveat is I do have a passion for this emerging market around healthy manhood and creating strong identity brands within that space as well. So that's a bit about me.
And that's why I reached out and hear people listen to Bridges Live, and this is why I really reach out to so many people, and we try to do is connection. One, I believe connection is what makes us move and gather and then join forces, because we're all moving in the same direction, especially when it's of above peace and unity. And a little, if you didn't know, Jewel, that I'm a Buddhist monk. Yeah, I've been.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been, and in my being not too many black Buddhist monks who also believe in Christ. So it's kind of funny that. And it's just that that's a little piece on me, and that's how I've been living my practice and living my life for almost over 30 years now. Practicing Buddhism and still believing the birth of Christ. People say, how do you do that? I said, well, Buddhism is a practice. It's a joy practice that I do every day, and I believe in the connection between us and the universe and the spiritual life and moving forward. So thank you for that, because not many people know that there's some people who practice Buddhism out there who are not black, which is funny.
Yeah, absolutely. There are Buddhists of all shades, colors, hues, backgrounds, etc. In the community I grew up in, it was completely diverse, multicultural. Japanese of direct origin, but here in America, it was, you name it, they were there. So I hear you, and I've seen it with my own eyes.
So now let's get into, as you know, with me doing emotional education and intelligence with people and young black people, tell us why specifically young men, and I really wanted to ask you this question, why young black boys and young black men? Because there is a need, we know that, but there's also things that have been missed.
Yeah, it's interesting because my business focuses on, grown men. My average client is 35 years old, works at Google, right? Financially, he's doing really well. Educationally, these are, UC Berkeley grad types. So they're doing really well, but your question relates to them as well, because it goes back to what is it that black boys are not getting in their childhood, which is leading them to feel hurt inside and act out in various ways. We look at statistics of, in the black community, there are 70+% of fatherless homes. So a lot of my clients come in and they're dealing with issues of, even as adults and successful functioning adults, around being abused as a child, abandoned as a child, neglected as a child, not validated as a child, and we have to do healing work. So my take on it, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, is that black boys are not getting a lot of what they need from both parenting and societal reinforcement of their worth. So I think just in a nutshell, that's what comes to mind.
What's some of the things that is for people who are going to be listening to this, that they could take away, that they could start right away besides contacting you, that they are to take a look in that, proverbial mirror to say, shoot, I didn't know I needed this, or I need to work on this?
Yeah, so I think, so we're talking about brothers in the corporate space.
Yes.
I would definitely say that your childhood and teenage years and early 20s, everything previously in life can impact you. And in some sense, we could say has an impact on you that may carry on till right now.
Correct.
So there's clients who, don't particularly feel loved by a certain parent and then have difficulties forming relationships at this point. Well, that has a root to it. And by looking at those roots and addressing them, first acknowledging that there was an impact. I'd say, out of everything I'd say, that would be it. Acknowledging that difficulties from your past may be negatively impacting you today, and there is a cure, there is a solution. But it requires you to get honest with yourself that in some ways you're not Superman, you're a human being, and you're vulnerable to being hurt like the rest of us. And that's a courageous step. So for you to do it, I applaud you.
I have known, by working with different factions of people, and you probably have too, why do you think people find it so difficult to look within that self without, breaking off those barriers and breaking down that vulnerability that they must seek so they can have enlightenment, or at least start focusing on going that way?
Well, I think when we talk about different people, it's important to talk about history and culture and tradition. So when we're talking about the black community in America specifically, or via colonization, so i.e. the diaspora, we're looking at a need to be buttoned up and a need to be protected, perhaps a need to be wary of the medical establishment, et cetera, for purposes of being safe.
Right.
So I think that's why when we can paint mental health in a way that really uplifts and upholds the black community, people come into it with an openness to be vulnerable and to share. My business is a male identity brand with a pro-social outcome. My business is called Black Executive Men. That says nothing about psychotherapy.
Right.
And that's intentional.
Right.
That's intentional. So there are men who want to be associated with Black Executive Men on name alone. Why? Because that's their aspiration in life. That's what they want to achieve. So socially, it's okay for them to be associated with my brand. It's actually a good thing. It supports their identity as a man and as an alpha man as well, the alpha aspect of a man. It encourages. But what do they talk about? sell the sizzle, not the steak. When they get in the office with me, we're breaking down tears and childhood trauma. And
yeah.
I'm telling brothers they need to love themselves and go on that spiritual journey and answer the call within. Like, it's the real deal talk. But that's not what I'm presenting to the world. So I think it's something about, especially working with black men, painting it in a way that feels safe enough for us to hear it and empowering enough for us to hear it, and it's not so risky that we feel like our whole manhood is being challenged in order to engage with these new concepts.
And that's so true, because when they come to you as a humble way, sometimes when men, young black men or young black boys come to me, it's usually they've been broken already, and that's just the case. And so they say, you know, because in the martial arts they say, Master Dyer or Dr. Paul, like, I need your help. And so they still have that facade of masculine that has to hold them upright so they can walk through the streets every day. And I get that.
Right.
You know, so I don't want them to lose that shield that they must have so they can go to the corner store, so they can drive that car, so they don't feel so weak when they get pulled over, but yet humble enough so they can comply without being shot. There's a lot of mental things that they are going through, and that don't you find that's the difficult part with working with black men?
Give me well, here's the thing. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. To be able to have the armor, be ready for war, it's important. And it definitely also depends on the environment you're in. So here's where I hesitated up front, but you're absolutely right. The hesitation came from, so a lot of guys that I work with, different scenarios, right? But in corporate America, they're one of the only, right? They're one of the only black men in the department, the team, or division, and a sea of white faces, or, you know, I'm out near Silicon Valley, so it could be Indian, something like that, or Asian, or something like that. But they're typically the only. On average, corporate America has, roughly 3% African American. So especially when you move up into middle management and higher. So once again, my guys, they've already been, be it through a private school, private white institution, or just the acculturation process of being in a majority non-black corporation, where they've had to learn how to code switch. They've had to learn how to manage their blackness to not come across as a threat to other people, other women, in the workplace. I mean, these brothers know how to position down to their body, down to their feet, down to their fingertips, down to the position of their hand, the intensity of their breathing, the words that they use or don't use. These brothers are masterfully trained in how to put other people at ease in order for them to what? Build connection and move up the chain.
Correct.
So that comes in addition to actually doing the work. So there they are doing two jobs for the price of one. But what I work on with them in our psychotherapy is actually two main things. One is emotional literacy, and the second is interpersonal communication. So a lot of my guys are still very much on guard and have difficulty trusting their coworkers. And in some cases, there's a good reason, but in other cases, there's not. And so with the emotional literacy piece, what we do is help them identify at any given time, how do they feel about something. Anything. And and so they'll start telling me, and they'll say, and then I walked out, and it's because she was feeling.
Yep.
How did you feel? And then I have them pick up this emotion sheet. It's got about 500 emotions on the sheet, front and back. And they look, and then they start rattling off all these emotions. I felt scared. I felt angry. I felt disturbed. I felt confused. I felt, again and again and again. And I said, well, how did you feel just telling me that right now? And they said, it felt good. I feel good to validate my internal subjective experience in front of another person. I said, this is the dojo. This is the practice chamber.
Yeah.
For you then to take that out into your relationship with your wife or your partner or in the workplace or your children or with your boys, etc. And so those are then the assignments. And they go and they take that into the workplace and they sit down with their boss and say, you know what? I really appreciate this job and what I'm doing. I believe in the cause, the mission. However, I'm actually starting to feel overwhelmed.
Okay. That's important.
And I need some additional support. So we need to hire on some support staff or perhaps change my role slightly, something of that nature. And the vulnerability that it can take for them to open up and say, you know, when you made that comment the other day, I wasn't sure how to take it. Is it that you don't appreciate my value here? Because I felt a little off-put. I feel. And by doing that, they oftentimes create bonds of connection through that authenticity at the workplace. And people begin to see them as people they can turn to be authentic with as well. And in today's corporation, that's the mark of where leadership is going.
Jules,
so, long-winded, but I'm in with that.
No, you really are, because I was talking to a group of people, and I was telling them about communication and connection. And to be actually authentic and expressive, you create that connection with yourself, your higher self. In that, you create that positive connection with another. Now, the other can be anything. It could be an animal, it could be a mate, and it could be a coworker. It could be the person that you're buying groceries from. But when you are authentic with your true self, you will make a positive connection. And that's the key to love, life, and longevity. Now, it was just amazing. I just want to let people know, thank you for listening to Bridges Live. This is Dr. Paul. I'm talking to Jewel Love, and he's out of California. I want people to know how to get in touch with you who want to be part of the executive brand.
Absolutely. So please reach me at www.blackexecutivemen.com. It's spelled exactly like it sounds, blackexecutivemen.com. You can find all the information about me, my practice, and the community there. Now, I don't know, Dr. Paul, if you have time to share one more thing.
Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, beautiful. So, yes, now I'm smiling. So, Black Executive Men, our symbol is the Golden Rhino. Mm-hmm. Now, the Golden Rhino actually comes from an ancient empire in southeastern Africa. When we talk about back to Africa, we often talk about West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Senegal, etc. But this is southeastern Africa, pre-colonial, to where they found a king who was buried, and in his burial ground
Speak it now.
was a golden rhino. And this symbol became known for that empire. Now, it was a commerce empire. So we're talking a tremendous amount of wealth in that area. So the golden rhino is really the symbol around Black executive men, because these men, this is not new.
No.
To be successful economically. It's very old and it's very ancient, yet here we are. So this is really tapping into ancestry deep, going back.
It's you
so
know what?
Really our symbol now.
I saw the symbol and I knew. Now check this out, because I also do a lot of reading with the Songhai. The Songhai, with the African group that we all came from, the science and the education.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, I was like, I wonder, and there it is. When you said it, man, I got tickled. Man, I was.
So the golden rhino, and it's like this, in Silicon Valley, there's something they call the unicorn, and a unicorn is $1 billion startup. But a Black executive man or a golden rhino, it's just as rare. He is just as rare, but equally as valuable. So when I say that to brothers in the corporate space, or basically that have just advanced to a degree that's commendable they get it and they understand it and they identify with it immediately. So the brand is really about optimal mental health and responsible corporate leadership. So for the Black Joy Parade that's coming up February 22nd here in Oakland, 14,000 people came last year with over 80 vendors. So this is a huge event. It's going to be very big this year as well. I'm getting 30 or more brothers together, and we're going to provide a real-time mental health mini workshop for the people in the crowd. And it's going to look like this. We're going to have shirts, and it's going to say a feeling. Each brother is going to have a different feeling
on their shirt.
On his shirt. And this whole thing is a Rhino charge. Okay, we're not marching in a parade. We're charging. We're charging up the community. So the first step is we're going to turn toward the crowd on both sides of the parade and have them yell out how they feel. So this is a real-time emotional literacy exercise. The second piece is deep breathing. And Dr. Paul, I know you know about this. The power of deep breathing for emotional regulation. And we're going to have the crowd do it with us in real time. The third is going to be 5 to 10 seconds of silent meditation. So what we're really doing is we're harnessing the power of Black manhood and masculinity for a holistic cause. Now, let's be real. Currently, Black manhood and masculinity, it's being channeled into sports, entertainment, pornography, and prison industrial complex.
Actually,
there may be a couple others.
There's a couple others, but what I want to say, I don't think it's being channeled. That's where it's being broken.
And I really like that you made that distinction. I didn't call it out like that. I'm a therapist. I know how to walk the fine line. But I really appreciate you saying that. But it's really taking that energy and like you said, broken and delivering it in those ways. And there are people making not millions, maybe not even, it might be trillions of dollars. Think about it.
I have.
All the industries, there you go, that benefit off Black manhood and masculinity and that power. So how do we take that and then channel it into a holistic cause that's good for us and good for the community? So that's really what we're up to at this event, and that's something that we're looking to expand upon and build upon as well. So I would say to your listeners, if you're interested in getting involved with that, you're more than welcome to go to blackexecutivemen.com, get in contact with me, and let's see how we can plug you in.
You know, Jewel, and again, I'd like to thank Jewel for coming on and with Black Executive and talking about this. Really, it's not even people ask me, they say, Paul, when you talk about Black culture or Black men or Black women, do you find it, because I have multi-family, multicultural family. It's not a sensitive issue. It's not a sensitive issue for me because I believe in the communication and the truth of the communication. This is not about putting someone else off, and this is not just about putting someone else over. This is about putting someone else on and awaken. That's the difference. I know a lot of people who live in this power over system, and that's because that's what it's been built on. But a lot of our conversation, this conversation is not about putting someone off or over. This is about putting someone else on. Now, with that being said, do you have your friends and some of your friends that aren't Black feel that this is a good thing that you're doing, and how do they respond?
I'm biracial myself.
Right.
So I'm a man that walks in multiple worlds, like I started off with, from not just a racial perspective, but a cultural perspective.
Right.
So it's a big piece of my life, but it is not the only piece of my life. So I just want to start off there. But to go directly to your question, man, I got my non-Black friends that want to be in it. They want to be in the parade. That's what I'm talking about. People see the positivity in it. They see the positivity and they see the need of it as well. I think people get it really quick and really clear.
Yes.
that there's a need for black men and in the black community for optimal mental health, for emotional well-being, and community, support for those things. So the feedback I've been getting it's been fantastic, actually. So I'm a psychotherapist, and the psychotherapist, it's a vast majority white industry. And so there's a lot of white mental health providers, and when I share with them what I'm doing, they say, there's such a need for that. There's such a need for that. Thank you for doing what you're doing. So definitely not about power over or power under. This is about focusing on a specific part of the global human family so everybody can benefit from it. And that's really the angle that we're taking is, how can this be ultimately beneficial for humanity as a whole?
I don't want to be corny because, when I do my prayers and meditation throughout the day, and I'm very dedicated and very strong in my prayers and meditations and practice, that, the Buddhism, we have that wheel, the wheel that goes around, and I look at the earth as a wheel because we are moving and spinning but anyway, I as we get better as humans, culturally, religiously, spiritually, this wheel becomes so strong and incredible that none of us gets rolled over, we roll with. So
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. The oneness.
The oneness. Thank you so much, Mr. Jewell. I want to wish you all the things in the world and the blessings of God's grace and everything that we are moving towards is as powerful of this universe, because we know without all we can never be one. So
that's right.
So thank you so much. I just want to keep you part of this Bridges Live family, and thank you so much for being part of our family.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.